Okay, so in regards to the last video that I made, as far as knife defense goes for the fight tips, reading some of the comments, I'm seeing a lot of crazy stuff, where just the lack of knowledge when it comes to knives that's out there is pretty insane. So I just want to address some of those uh, comments, and clear up a lot of things because again, I'm around knives all the time. I work in a Pikiti Tersha Kali school. Um, I train with Grand Tuan Leo Gahe himself. I work with him. He comes down to the school quite frequently. Um, for those of you that don't know who he is, uh, as far as Pikiti Tersha Kali goes, he is the highest you could get in that art. It's the equivalent of working with Bruce Lee in JKD. So that's Grand Tuan Leo Gahe for Pikiti Tersha Kali. So for people to say that this doesn't work and that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about is absolutely crazy because you don't get any higher in the knife world, working with people like that. So, you know, the knowledge is pure. The knowledge is legit. It's been field tested. It's been done, watched, and supervised under knife experts that are the highest in their field. He's not the only knife expert that I've worked with. I've worked with other knife experts that have actually took part in training DevGru and other special operations groups. So as far as where the knife knowledge is coming from and what you're actually seeing, that's where it is. So some of the comments there were, oh, this wouldn't work against a trained knife guy. Well, bullshit. I trained with knife experts, the best knife guys in the world. It works. So right there is just showing a lack of knowledge of not knowing what knife attacks look like, not knowing what a trained knife guy looks like. So this is my chance to kind of clear up some of this stuff. It just shows me that there's a lack of education as far as how people perceive the knife. Well, that's why I teach, right? To help clear up some of these things. I also saw some other comments that said, oh no, you should block the knife, not redirect the knife. There's no such thing as blocking the knife. Steel beats flesh every time. So if you block the knife and present flesh in front of that blade, you're going to lose it. You don't block knives, okay? You could deflect them, you could redirect them, and you're still going to get cut, but you're going to minimize cut damage. But you don't block knives. That doesn't happen. Another thing I hear a lot is, oh, you should run. Yeah, if you have a chance to run, run. But you're not always going to have a chance to run. Knife attacks happen fast. Sometimes you are in a close quarter confined space where you don't have the luxury of being able to run. What do you do then, right? You have to address it because you can't run. So that's just, again, coming back to a lack of knowledge, right? And some people are like, oh, don't get close to the guy. Just keep jumping back and dodging the knife, At that point, you're just preventing the inevitable. If the guy really wants to stab you, it's going to get you eventually. At some point in that fight, you're going to have to go in, close the gap, and face it. So you have to be trained to do that. Also, you're not going to learn this stuff by watching a YouTube video and being a master at it. These things take time. They do require a skill set, and it's a perishable skill set, and it's one that has to be worked constantly. Some of the other things that I heard was, let's see, I've seen people say, oh, take off your shirt, wrap your shirt around your arm. You're not going to have time to take off your shirt and wrap it around your arm. Plus, if you did take off your shirt and have a flexible weapon, there's better ways to use it than wrapping it around your arm as far as how to deal with a knife goes. That's been done for history. You go back to Colosseum days, gladiators used fishnets against swords and was able to trap the sword very well. They didn't wrap the fishnet around their arm. They used it to tangle up the knife. So there's better ways to use flexible weapons than wrapping around your arm. But realistically, you're not going to have time in a fight to take your damn shirt off and use it like that. People say, oh, the knife attacker in the video wasn't being aggressive enough, so that makes it not real. There's a big misconception with that where people think that they fight better when they're angry. They fight better when they're more aggressive. False. People fight worse when they're angry and more aggressive. If you've ever dealt with a trained person, if you've ever been in a real deal training facility, you would know that. You would absolutely know that. I have people like that walk in all the time and try to call horseshit on stuff and think that they could be more aggressive. I give them the chance to be aggressive. You know what happens? They get hurt, they get injured, and they leave. And they don't come back again because they're out for 6 months healing. So at that point, you got 6 months out of training just to heal again off one lesson. While you're doing that, everyone else is still getting their training done for that 6 months, so they're moving ahead of where you are in your training. So there needs to be elements in your training where you're going to kick up the aggression and actually have more resistance and go a lot harder with your sparring partners. But when you're still learning the moves, I'm not going to show it fast, full speed, and just wreck the shit out of you. I have to show you the move first. To add elements of speed and aggression, it doesn't make the move or the attacker attack better. If anything, it makes the person who knows what they're doing have an easier time dealing with somebody who's aggressive. Somebody who's aggressive is reckless. They're going to make large, uncalculated movements. Experts in the field are going to be very efficient in their movement. They're going to move very little and get a very large payoff. That's what efficiency is, right? This is why if you ever watch tennis, you see a trained tennis guy against an untrained tennis guy. The untrained tennis guy is running all around the court like a madman, and the trained tennis guy is very relaxed and just barely moving, but putting the ball wherever he wants. He's not being aggressive. He's not moving fast, but he's being efficient because he's mastered it. So people think, oh, they'll fight better if they're more angry and more aggressive. So if the guy was angry and aggressive and really wanted to stab you, he would get in there and make it work. No, I've disproved that many times. It doesn't work like that in training. I mean, I have stuff like this, video footage like this. I have training sessions where there is more aggressive, there is more speed, but by that point in that guy's training, you know, he knows how to handle it to where we could minimize the amount of injuries. But more injuries will happen like that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't train like that, it's just you can't train like that all the time. So this video, the actual gentleman in the video I was working with has done this fast. He's done it to other people, and he's been on the receiving end of it coming in fast on me as well. If you don't believe it works, why don't you come train with me? Come train with me, and you'll quickly find out that it does. One of the other things that I hear a lot is like the knife is undefendable, right? Like you can't defend the knife. It's this unicorn magical weapon. Every time someone's in a knife attack, they die. Not true. There's been guys that have been stabbed in prison like 48 times, beat the shit out of the guy and lived, and then got patched up later. So you don't automatically always die when a knife is presented to you. It doesn't work like that. It's not this unicorn weapon that if it touches you, you just blow up. That's horseshit. It doesn't work like that. So there are ways to defend a knife, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you you could defend a knife, no matter how much of an expert you are, by not getting cut. You're going to get cut. Nobody defends a knife without getting cut. If so, you got really lucky and the stars lined up that day. But I'm not saying you're not going to get cut, but minimize cut damage. You know, make sure that the cut damage is taken on a spot on the body that will not biomechanically shut you down, and you could continue to fight to win. That you can do. That is legitimate, real knife defense. You know, minimize cut damage and destroy the other guy before he gets a chance to deliver a vital blow. That can be done. And that's exactly what I teach. When I teach people knife defense, that's what I tell them. I don't try to bullshit them into thinking that they're going to approach the knife and be able to take it from this guy and not get cut. But at the same time, I don't bullshit them and tell them there's no way to defend the knife. It's a magical weapon. It's this unicorn weapon. And if a guy tries to stab you, all you can do is run away or die. That's horseshit. That guy has not spent any time learning the knife. It's not as easy to kill someone with a knife as people think. There's very few spots on the body that are actually going to kill the person very quickly with a knife, and they're naturally protected by just the way the body's designed. So when two people are moving fast and aggressive, and trying to get to those spots is not as easy as people think. It can be done, but that requires training also. All of this stuff requires training, whether you're on the giving or the receiving end of the knife. It's going to require training. The more untrained you are, the easier you are to deal with. But knives are manageable. I just, reading some of those comments, I see a major lack of understanding of how knives truly work, how knife training is really done, how knife attacks really happen. I've seen a wide degree of knife attacks. I've actually dealt with a lot of people that have been attacked with knives. I've been attacked with knives. I understand what goes into attacking with knives. It's a world that I'm very familiar with, not just because of sitting down and watching YouTube videos, but actually living it and being a part of it. So I hope this clears up a lot of the misconceptions that I was seeing in the comments and some of the knife myths that are still believed out there, to where people are just really far away from the reality of working with knives. I think part of what messed that up was Hollywood. You see movies really kind of screw shit up. It's not really like that. But then you also have a lot of shitty instructors out there that, make the knife out to be some magical weapon and that it's like undefendable. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus as far as some of the knife instructors out there that I'm talking about particularly, but they are out there. So don't be fooled by that stuff. But just so you have an idea as to where my knife knowledge is coming from, it is coming from the top knife guys in the industry. You're not going to get higher than the guys that I've worked with and work with on a regular basis. So, it's legitimate knife defense, but not from sitting down and watching a video. You got to get out there and train it. The video was just to give you an idea and a principle behind a technique that could actually save your life. But it's not the be-all and end-all. You're not going to learn the whole, knife defense thing from, a 2-minute video. There's people that have dedicated, 60 plus years to this stuff that still are trying to figure out certain things. So, understand what you're watching and how to interpret it. But I hope this does fix a lot of the just major lack of education as far as knives are concerned. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you have any more questions, go ahead. Put the questions in the comments. I'll be happy to address them. But just make sure they're responsible, legitimate questions. And I'll be happy to answer them.